right, students, this particular section of our book deals with how we got the states of Texas and Florida, and you all ought to know a lot about how we got Texas. Other states are going to be mentioned in here too, though, so understand there's more than just Texas and Florida that we talk about. All right, so Spain cedes Florida over to us in 1821 with the Adams-Onis Treaty. Remember how Jackson had gone down there and sort of overstepped his boundaries, but that's how we got Florida. And the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 provided Florida with some legal positions. Remember, they get appointed a governor, they get a territorial legislature, and they get a non-voting delegate to Congress until they become with enough population to become a state. But by 1824, that's only like 3 years later, they get a state capital in Tallahassee. Fewer than 8,000 people originally live in the territory, but new settlers arrive because of fertile land. And mostly y'all think about the northern part of Florida, the what we call the panhandle area of Florida and the northern areas. Because in the south, let's face it, it's mostly swamp. It's where the Everglades is. All right, so I have a little map up here at the top to kind of show you the geography of Florida a little bit, because I want you to keep that in mind when you think about Florida. A lot of the southern farms, they didn't know a lot about crop rotation or things like that back in those days, and they just kept planting the same crops in the same areas over and over again. And you'll study a lot more about this when you study U.S. history in high school when we talk about the Dust Bowl. But these southern farms are getting worn out through constant use and constant replanting of the same crops over and over again. And farmers from Virginia and Georgia and the Carolinas are like, okay, brand new land we can use. And so a lot of them just kind of moved to Florida and established farms to produce tobacco and cotton. And again, I've got this little bullet point in the middle, like why were these cash crops located in northern Florida? Well, it's because of the geography. Because in the rest of Florida, in the middle and southern areas, I don't know if my little cursor will show up on here, like right in here, it becomes too swampy to do much farming. All right, cattle ranches are also part of the economy of Florida, and they still are. They were then and they still are. And planters, just like in the rest of the South, and we will talk about this more as time goes by, but the planters, those are the people who own the large plantations, become influential in society, and they run a lot of the politics of Florida as well during this time. Okay, I've got a little Florida map. And what I want you to notice with this map is that the northern part of Florida is divided off into counties fairly quickly because that's where most of the population lives. There's a couple things going on in the middle and southern areas of Florida. First, it's mostly swampish, okay? But secondly, there are remnants of the Seminole Indians in that area of Florida. And it's not the best place for you to go to try to start a farm. All right. By 1837, the annual census determines that there's 48,000 people, and slaves, unfortunately, the people who move there bring their slaves with them. And so we've got now probably enough people to apply for statehood. But the problem is they want to apply for statehood as a slave state. Again, I will repeat myself. Slavery is legal everywhere still in the United States. Many of the northern states have made it in their own state illegal, but there's nothing constitutionally wrong with slavery at this point. Now, the problem with this is, if you look at the second to last bullet point, only white men over 21 years of age are legally allowed the right to vote. So while they have 48,000 people, half of that population is slaves. And so that really only gives you 24,000 people. So it's a problem because you don't really have a voting population applying for statehood. It's an issue. Okay. So the United States says, okay, we can maybe look at you for a state, but you have to create a state constitution, submit it to Congress, and Florida selects people to go to a constitutional convention, and their constitution includes, at their constitutional convention, things that we would recognize as normal in present day. So look at the bullet points here. It says their constitution is going to include an elected governor who can hold office for 4 years. Common, that's what we do in most places. An elected General Assembly, that means like a legislature that makes rules and laws for the state. The Constitution allows slavery, which is, again, common because they want to be a slave state. And they also call for public schools. And even to this day, Florida is one of the states that has got a strong public school system. The Constitution is agreed upon and becomes law in 1839. Okay, good for us. Yay, Florida. Moving right along. But there's a problem. We now are going to have an imbalance between slave and free states. And so the Congress of the United States begins to drag their heels on whether to admit Florida or not. Florida's ready. Florida has enough people. Florida has done everything the United States Congress has asked it to do. But the Congress of the United States says, no, we don't know. We have to think about this for a long, long time now because we just don't think we can admit you because you're a slave state and we're not sure about whether we should just allow you in or not. So if you're Florida, you're getting kind of irritated about that. All right. They kind of have to wait and just wait and just wait until some other state that's going to be admitted as a free state wants to join and is able to join. And finally, Iowa is ready. Iowa finally has enough people. And when Iowa finally has enough people and can be admitted as a free state, then Congress is willing and John Tyler signs Florida as a state. So they both come at the same time, but understand that Florida had to wait for 6 years, and all the time its population was growing during that 6 years. And they should have had representation probably in Congress, a voting representation in Congress during that time, but did not because they were dragging their feet on it. All right, I think I might stop here. Let me just go to the next frame and see. Yes, I want to stop here. I'm going to stop because this thing breaks itself up nicely into Florida and Texas. So I'm going to come back and talk about Texas in the next screencast.